It begins in silence, the kind of silence that feels heavier than noise, the kind that doesn't just fill a room but sinks into the chest. Blue and red lights pulse against the night, cutting through the stillness like the heartbeat of chaos itself. And there he stands, Elon Musk. The man who built rockets to escape gravity, now grounded by it. The man who turned chaos into innovation, now swallowed by it. The metallic click of handcuffs echoes, a sound so ordinary yet so final. Cameras flash like 1,000 lightning strikes, hungry for the moment the untouchable man becomes touchable again. But behind that still expression, something deeper brews. Not fear, not anger, but a strange sort of quiet, because in that instant, everything stops. The control he's mastered over machines, companies, and headlines, it all dissolves. The world moves on, but he doesn't. For the first time in years, there's nothing to command, nothing to prove. Just the sound of breath, and the realization that power was never real control. It's strange, isn't it? How the same man who sends cars to space can't steer a single moment on Earth. How silence can feel louder than applause. And as the lights fade into the night, we begin to see the true story emerging. Not of a billionaire's fall, but of a human being's awakening. Because sometimes the world has to take everything from you, just so you can finally see what was never yours to begin with. They called him invincible. The man who bent industries to his will, who treated the impossible like a challenge, not a warning. Every headline painted him as a prophet of progress, a modern Prometheus stealing fire from the gods of old industry and handing it to humanity. But even Prometheus was punished for what he gave. It's easy to believe in invincibility when the world keeps applauding your defiance. When every failure turns to a meme, and every success becomes proof that you were right to ignore the noise. Elon built his legend on that rhythm. Resistance and reward, risk and redemption. He wasn't just building rockets. He was building mythology. But myths have one flaw. They demand distance from reality. And somewhere along the climb, the air thinned. The higher he went, the less oxygen there was for doubt, humility, or rest. Success becomes a kind of suffocation, a quiet addiction to control disguised as vision. Maybe that's what happens when the world starts calling you a genius. You stop being human in their eyes, and slowly, you stop being human in your own. Every mistake feels fatal. Every breath feels borrowed. Every quiet moment feels like wasted time. The illusion of invincibility doesn't come from strength. It comes from fear. Fear that if you stop moving, the applause will fade. Fear that if you let go, everything will collapse, and yet, in chasing permanence, you forget what it means to feel present, to simply exist without building something, to love something without owning it. It's strange how the same drive that creates greatness also builds the walls around. Achievement without peace isn't freedom. It's another kind of prison, one lined with gold and echoing with applause, but still, a prison. Maybe that's what the handcuffs symbolized that night. Not punishment, but perspective. A reminder that even gods of progress are still men, still fragile, still searching, still capable of breaking. Because in the end, invincibility isn't real. It's just a story we tell ourselves to outrun our own reflection, and no matter how fast you move, the mirror always catches up. Noise has a weight. It's invisible, but it presses on the mind like gravity, relentless, unseen, impossible to escape. For someone like Elon, that noise became the air he breathed. The hum of social media, the flash of cameras, the endless flood of opinions, praise, criticism, mockery, worship. It's not just attention. It's surveillance disguised as love. Every move he made became content. Every word, a headline. Every silence, a story. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a feed, constantly refreshed. A mirror for everyone's dreams and disappointments. And in that storm, even brilliance begins to blur. It's strange, isn't it? How we crave noise. How we scroll for hours waiting to feel something. Validation, outrage, belonging. Anything to remind us we're still seen. But the more we consume it, the more it consumes us. And maybe Elon was no different. Maybe the man who built machines to communicate faster forgot what it meant to listen. The arrest, that single moment of stillness, was like a power outage in a city that never sleeps. For the first time, the noise stopped. No tweets, no cameras, no headlines, just breath and the sound of a world that had finally gone quiet. But silence can be terrifying when you've forgotten how to live in it. When you've built your identity around the world's reaction, stillness feels like death, because fame at its core isn't just visibility, it's dependence. Dependence on eyes that never look away, even when you wish they would. And beneath all that chaos, something deeper stirs. Exhaustion. The kind that no sleep can fix. The kind that grows from years of performance, of pretending to be unshakable. Maybe that's the irony of modern fame. It gives you everything except the one thing you need most: peace. In the end, the noise isn't just around you. It's inside you. It shapes your thoughts, dictates your fears, rewires your silence. Until one day, you wake up and realize the world isn't shouting anymore. You are, and maybe that's when you begin to understand that silence isn't emptiness, it's medicine, it's truth. It's the one thing left when the world finally stops watching. The noise fades long before the silence does. The world outside is still screaming. Reporters, investors, the endless hum of judgment. But inside the cell, there's nothing left to answer to. Just four pale walls, a flickering light, and the echo of his own breath. For the first time in years, there's no dashboard to monitor, no launch countdown, no stream of notifications demanding attention. The rhythm of his life, the endless acceleration, has been cut off mid-beat. And what's left is just stillness. It's a strange kind of stillness. Not peace, not yet. More like the quiet before you admit something to yourself. The kind of silence that presses on your chest until you realize it's not coming from the room. It's coming from within. He sits there, the man who once tried to colonize Mars, realizing he can't even escape his own mind. No team to lead. No algorithm to control. Just thoughts, and thoughts, when there's nowhere to hide from them, can feel heavier than gravity. He begins to see it, the truth hidden beneath all that brilliance. That control was never mastery. It was armor. Every innovation, every bold risk, every sleepless night, it wasn't just about building the future. It was about running from something he couldn't fix in the present, himself. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, where the illusion cracks, where the ego, that proud architect of chaos and conquest, finally runs out of blueprints, and in that emptiness, awareness seeps in like light through broken glass. He remembers the silence before every launch, that brief second when the engines hadn't fired yet, when everything depended on trust. Maybe that's what life is too, not a machine to command, but a flame to hold carefully, something that burns brighter when you stop trying to contain it. It's ironic. The man who built systems to control everything, now learning the hardest truth. You can't control what you refuse to feel, and maybe that's where real freedom begins. Not in power, not in success, but in surrender, because when control collapses, the self finally starts to breathe. There's a fine line between genius and madness, but maybe they're just reflections of the same mirror, two faces of the same hunger we all carry inside us. Because this isn't just Elon's story, it's ours. The madness of ambition, the quiet addiction to more success, more validation, more movement, more noise. We call it progress, but sometimes it feels more like escape. We work until our minds ache, chase goals we don't even remember setting, and build empires out of exhaustion. We promise ourselves peace, but only after the next milestone, the next paycheck, the next achievement. And yet, when we finally arrive, there's nothing waiting there except a deeper kind of emptiness. Maybe that's what madness really is. The belief that peace lives on the other side of chaos. That happiness is something to be earned, not felt. Elon just lived it louder. His stage was the world, his breakdown televised. But beneath the spotlight, the pattern is painfully familiar. We all carry our own versions of that breakdown, hidden behind screens, smiles and morning routines. There's a kind of insanity in our collective chase. We build machines to make life easier and then use them to make ourselves busier. Talk about balance while glorifying burnout. We crave connection but mistake visibility for love, and maybe that's the true mirror of madness. A civilization that worships speed, but forgets direction. That measures worth by output, not peace. Elon's collapse wasn't the end of brilliance. It was the unveiling of truth, that even the brightest minds can break under the weight of their own creation. And in that breaking, there's something sacred, something human, because sometimes it takes losing control to see what was controlling you. Sometimes it takes madness to remember your mind. We're all standing in front of that mirror, aren't we? Staring at the reflection of our own chaos, the plans, the deadlines, the pressure. And maybe, just maybe, it's not success we're chasing. Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's peace. The kind we were too busy to notice was always there, quietly waiting beneath the noise. Freedom. It's what he always claimed to be chasing. For humanity, for himself. Freedom from fossil fuels, from gravity, from limitation. The word became his compass, his justification, his gospel. But now, sitting in the quiet aftermath of control's collapse, he begins to sense something deeper. That maybe freedom wasn't out there among the stars. Maybe it was buried somewhere inside the silence he'd spent a lifetime running from. It's strange, isn't it? We spend years building systems to feel free, wealth, influence, independence, only to realize we've built cages too beautiful to question. We chase control because it promises safety. But what if safety was never the same as freedom? He thinks about all the ways he'd defined it before. Owning his time, commanding attention, defying gravity. But every victory came with a leash, expectations, investors, headlines, algorithms. The world called him free, but he'd never felt more trapped inside his own creation. And now, in this rare stillness, he begins to understand the paradox. Freedom doesn't come from mastering the world, it comes from releasing your grip on it, because control and freedom are mirrors. The tighter you hold one, the further the other drifts away. There's a quiet kind of rebellion in surrender, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything. It's not the absence of action, but the absence of fear. To accept what is, instead of endlessly remaking it. To move, not from hunger, but from peace. He remembers how the rockets looked as they broke through the atmosphere. That single, trembling moment when the engines shut off and gravity loosened its hold. For a brief instant, the ship was weightless, directionless, utterly still. That was freedom. Not control, not force, but the calm between. Maybe that's what life was trying to show him all along. That true liberation isn't about reaching Mars or building empires. It's about finding stillness in motion, clarity in chaos, and surrender within strength. Because freedom was never about escaping Earth. It was about learning how to live here, fully, quietly, freely, without needing to own the sky. There's a moment after every storm when the air smells different, when the sky feels lighter, when silence finally returns, not as punishment but as peace. For Elon, that moment came not in a boardroom or a courtroom but in stillness, sitting alone, somewhere between disbelief and surrender, and maybe that's where real freedom begins. In the art of letting go of control, of perfection, of the idea that life can be engineered into obedience. For so long, he tried to master chaos, to build systems that bend to will, but life doesn't bend. It breathes, and the more you tighten your grip, the less of it you can hold. It's strange how we think strength means endurance, when sometimes it's the gentle act of release, the courage to stop fixing, stop forcing, stop fighting what already is. Letting go isn't defeat. It's trust. It's saying, maybe I don't need to control this. Maybe I just need to feel it. That night, when the lights faded and the noise dissolved, The man who built rockets remembered something older than technology: humility. The quiet knowing that power means nothing if it costs your peace. And maybe that's the point of every fall. Not to shame us, but to shape us. Not to strip us of pride, but to return us to presence. Forgiveness. Not from the world, but from yourself. For every moment you tried to be more than human. For every time you forgot that existing in itself is enough. When Elon walked out into the morning light, the world was still loud, still messy, still uncertain, but something within him had shifted. The noise no longer ruled him, because sometimes the art of letting go isn't about losing anything at all. It's about remembering what was never lost: peace, waiting patiently beneath the armor. The door opens with a low hum, metal sliding against metal, and light spills into the room like a slow exhale. He steps out, not with the stride of a man returning to power, but with the calm of someone who has nothing left to prove. The air feels different, though it's the same air he's always breathed. The morning sky stretches wide, washed in quiet gold. Cars move, people rush, cameras click. The world hasn't changed, but he has. For the first time, he doesn't feel the need to run ahead of it. There's no script to rewrite, no headline to control. Just movement, simple, human, honest. Every sound feels alive again. Footsteps, wind, breath. The small things that once disappeared beneath the roar of ambition now hum with meaning. It's strange how silence can rebuild what chaos once destroyed. He used to believe growth came from acceleration, from pushing harder, faster, louder. But now he understands the paradox, that creation also lives in stillness, that innovation begins not in noise, but in awareness. He walks past the reporters without speaking. Their questions bounce off him, like rain against glass, because this story, the real one, isn't for them. It isn't about a man being arrested or released. It's about what happens when the noise finally stops, and what's left standing after the ego dissolves. There's a beauty in simplicity he'd never noticed before. The way sunlight touches concrete, the rhythm of breathing, the weightlessness of a moment unmeasured. It feels like starting over, but gentler this time. No rockets, no plans, no noise, and just presence. And maybe that's what all of this was for, to lose the illusion of control so he could rediscover the quiet art of being. As dawn breaks, he smiles, not because he's free to conquer the world again, but because he finally understands he doesn't need to. Somewhere between silence and surrender, a new kind of freedom was born. A world rebuilt, not in sound, not in speed, but in stillness. The sun was rising, no headlines, no sirens, just the soft hum of morning, the kind of silence that doesn't ask for anything. It simply is. Elon stepped out of the station. No cameras, no crowd, just breath meeting cold air. The night before already felt like a dream fading with the dawn, and maybe that's what freedom truly feels like. Not the absence of consequence, but the absence of noise. He didn't win or lose that night. He simply stopped fighting. Sometimes life has to bring us to our knees, not to punish us, but to remind us what we were standing on in the first place. Because falling isn't failure, it's gravity's way of teaching us surrender. It's the universe whispering, "You were never meant to carry it all." For years, he tried to outrun the fall, through innovation, through control, through the endless pursuit of more. But you can't outsmart what you're meant to feel, and in the quiet, stripped of titles and noise, he found what had been missing all along. Not power, not validation, but peace. Peace that doesn't need applause. Peace that doesn't demand perfection. Peace that waits patiently for us to remember it. The world will keep spinning. The noise will return. But once you've fallen, truly fallen, you stop fearing gravity. You stop fearing silence, because you finally understand that freedom was never about rising higher. It was about the courage to fall, and the grace to rise slowly, without needing to be seen. If this spoke to you, share it with someone who's still afraid of falling. Maybe they need to remember that peace was never lost. It was only forgotten